Hello, everyone. Welcome back to What Could It Be? I think it's another bi-monthly Q&A. That's right, it is. And today we're going to be going over questions that you guys left for me. As always, I really appreciate the wonderful, kind things you guys have left. Some of you leave some really sweet comments, and I always really enjoy reading those. And some of you are very concise with what you want to know, which I really appreciate. And I really love just how many of you guys are so curious and so excited to know more about me, about ASMR, about voice acting, about characters, just about stuff. And as a professional yapper, I do love to talk about things. So today that's what we're gonna do. And first and foremost, I will say we're joined by my squeaky chair, because last time I think I was doing an ASMR Q&A. It went on for so long that because I was kneeling, my knees were in so much pain, I almost blacked out. It might not have been this past one, the April one. It might have been the February one. But yeah, I was just legitimately in so much pain that I finished answering one question. I forget which question it was, but I finished answering a question, and as I was finishing it, I reached up, paused the recording, and probably collapsed because my vision was going black, and I didn't lose consciousness, so there was nothing to worry about, in that regard at least. But, yeah, I did have to lie down. I sat in my bed. I crawled my way over to my bed and just lied in my bed for easily 10 minutes, regathering my strength. So, we're not gonna do that this time. We're just gonna sit in my chair and let my chair go. So, yeah. Okay. So, the first thing I would like to discuss real quick in this Q&A is in-character Q&As. I know a couple of you guys have been asking about it, so I thought I'd just go ahead and clear the air. So, for those of you who don't know, back, I think over a year ago now, I did 2 in-character Q&As. The first one was a pretty short one, because it was when I was just getting started. But the second one was pretty big, and I actually split it up, so that every character would have, I think there was an audio distinctly for the Himbo Jimbro, an audio distinctly for the Friendly Giant, and then I want to say the audio for the Catboy and the Chill Mage were combined. And then I want to say that was it. I feel like I might be missing someone, but I don't know. I don't recall. So, yeah. That being said, I haven't done one in a while, and I'm going to address that. So basically, just gonna go over a few points real quick just to express if I want to do another one, when I want to do another one, and why I haven't done another one, just to give you guys kind of a better idea of, I guess, the inner workings of my mind or something. So, do I want to do an in-character Q&A? That's the first big thing. Yes, I do want to do one at some point in the future, so that you guys can ask questions for my characters, especially with how many like additional characters I have. Because like before, I think the first one was just like the chill mage, the catboy, and the friendly giant. I think that was it. And then of course we got the himbo jimbro. But now we have the bog mage, the curious naga, the chill mechanic, the gentle friend. And I think that's everyone. I think I might be forgetting someone. You guys can tell me. I'm sure if I forgot your favorite character, you'll be writing a comment right now saying, "Sauce, you fool, I'm unsubscribing. I'm reporting you to the police. How dare you forget to include my favorite character, Club Shitto." And I will have to go, "You're right, I completely forgot." But yes, I think it would be fun to let you guys ask those characters a question as well, rather than just the older ones. As for when I want to do it, I'm not too sure currently. My life is pretty busy right now, but I feel like maybe I could do it in like December for like Christmas, or like something like that. Like maybe like I could do like an audio upload of like one Q&A like for each character like every day of the week for Christmas. That could be fun, right? And also that way, you know, I could open up a form for you guys to ask questions way early on, and that way like you guys could ask questions and I wouldn't be like panicking trying to prepare. With that said though, I do recognize it's been a while since my last in-character Q&A. And to be fair, a part of that is because the last two were celebrations of milestones. And I don't know, I haven't been sure what would be an appropriate like milestone to celebrate. Like, you know, 1,500 subscribers, 2,000 subscribers, 10,000 subscribers. I don't know. So maybe you guys can tell me what you think the next celebration should be. But one of the central things I really struggle with for the in-character Q&As is keeping information straight. And I want to be like super duper clear. This is not to bash any of your delightful inquisitive natures. I have had quite a few delightful listeners like inform me that either they, you know, they heard one specific thing I said as an offhanded comment and like they latched onto that and they're like, "I can't wait to see what you do with this." Or you know, some of them have even informed me they like keep like documents of all the information of all my characters. And I think that's awesome. I really do think that is fantastic. If that's like how you engage with my media, I genuinely like could not be happier. I really do appreciate that. However, most of my audios are almost entirely, if not just entirely, improvised. So a lot of little like details and like offhand comments tend to get forgotten by me. So like for example, if I state in like one audio that a character's parent has passed away or something, I don't want to risk referencing that parent as still being alive in a Q&A with them and causing confusion with that. Especially if the two are like conflicting audios that are both Q&As. So like I don't want, you know, Q&A number 1 for the chill mage to be like, yeah, both my parents are dead, it's whatever, it's chill, I'm not bothered by it. And then the very next Q&A for him to be like, yeah, no, I went and saw my mother and father earlier this week. We made pancakes together. And you guys be like, wait, I thought they were dead. Is this like ghosts? Are these like adoptive parents? Are these like, is this like him visiting their graves? Like, what's going on? I don't want you guys to be confused. So, I am a bit wary of in-character Q&As for that reason, because I don't want to confuse you guys. I don't want to give you the wrong information, and again, because most of my information is kind of said offhandedly in improvised audios, I just don't want to let you guys down by, saying a bunch of lies. However, with that said, I do think, to a certain degree, part of it just comes down to the characters evolve. This is my, I think, third year doing ASMR. I want to say I started in 2023 or 2022. And I've been going, I think I started in 2023. That I did a full year. Then I changed my thumbnail art style, and I've been going with that ever since. I want to say that's how it worked. So, yeah. In essence, I kind of just need to get over myself. But yeah, I do hope to do one again soon. I do want to do an in-character Q&A. With any luck, in December. If you guys like that idea, please feel free to comment so that I know you would like that. And if you don't, if you'd rather me not do a Q&A, in-character Q&A, then that's fine too. I will also really quickly say, before I forget, whatever in-character Q&As I would do, I would have you guys ask as many questions as you want. I know with these ones, because they happen so regularly, I limit the amount of questions that folks can ask, at least on YouTube. But because of their rarity, and because they are special, and they're not just, me talking for no reason. There's a reason, but, they're not just me talking. You wouldn't have to worry about finding your one singular question you want to ask to your one singular character. I very much would want it to be that anyone can ask any question, as many questions as they want. They want to ask one question? Cool. They want to ask one question to every character? That's fine. They want to ask, 15 questions to every single character? It's cool. Well, I want to allow that, so don't worry about that. But yeah, December? What do you guys think? December? December, yes or no? Okay, that's enough rambling from me. It was a quite long intro. I wonder, can I take a sippy sip of water? Water, yummy, yummy. So, I really hope you guys can get the feeling that I don't edit these very much. They're just so long. If I were to spend time editing out every weird noise, I would go insane. So, first question is from Zoara. Hello, Zoara. I hope you're keeping well. Zoara asks, have you considered uploading your YouTube audios to Patreon as well? I don't know how complicated that would be to do, but maybe it'd be nice to have them there in the event that YouTube takes them down for any reason. I do think that could be a good idea. I kind of briefly humored the thought, but kind of quickly, banished it, because that's a lot of audios, and I worried that that would just kind of be spamming my Patreon. But I do think that if nothing else, having a Google Drive or something that you guys can like find all of my finished audios that are public. I think that could be good. So yeah, I do definitely think that if nothing else, having like some sort of archive would be a fun thing. So thank you for the suggestion. Zora's second question was, if you had to make a TTRPG or D&D party out of your characters, what would everyone's class or roles be? Okay, so I will assign specific D&D 5th edition classes where I can. But if nothing specific comes to mind, I'll just go with general terms. So, Hugh, the Himbo Jimbro, would be an Oath of Redemption Paladin. Because he's big, he's loving, he's protective. My chair is squeaky. And charisma is definitely his highest stat, accompanying strength. Plus, since he'd be charisma based with his spells, he does not need a high intelligence. Next, I'll say Chaudry, the chill mage. I know a lot of folks would probably assume wizard, but truthfully, Chaudry isn't good at a wide range of magic. He's good at very particular magics, and knowing that magic stuff does. So, I would class him as an alchemist artificer. Very high intelligence, go with potions. That makes sense to me. Ryback the Catboy. I'm not too sure. I would say possibly a cleric, though with his herbology knowledge and love of the outdoors, possibly druid. Plus, druid does tie into his cat features, so sure, druid it is. I don't have a particular subclass, just druid. Clement, the friendly giant. I would say ranger. Natural explorer feat is a great way to work with the fact that he's far bigger than the rest of the party. So things like rocky terrain, navigation, etc. are far easier for him to deal with than others. Plus, ranger, knowledge about nature, blah, 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 blah. It makes sense to me. I'm not quite sure what subclass he would be. So I will simply say ranger. Aether, the bog mage, would be a wizard. Probably a transmutation wizard. They have, professional arcane training. They have great intelligence and very poor charisma. They are, for all intents and purposes, a wizard. That just works out really well for them. Nathan, the chill mechanic, would probably be a bard. He's not got a lot of physical strength, but he does talk well, and, he's a little bit magic. So, I think bard would work well for him. Probably college acclaimer. Now for the lesser used boys, the ones I don't use as much. The harpy is a bard, obviously, because he sings. The gruff dragon would be a barbarian, probably, because he's got that rage. The curious naga would be either a rogue or a ranger, probably. Because he's got ties to nature, but he's also very sneaky by virtue of being a snake and thus not needing to walk. So I think rogue. And finally, the cuddly werewolf, a rather recent addition to the boys. I will say druid because, Haha, shapeshifter. And those are Sawara's questions. Thank you, Sawara. I appreciate it. Next, nobody asks, do you like girls? Fun question. So the short answer is no. I, as an individual, am not sexually or romantically attracted to women or any feminine presenting folks. However, for a slightly longer answer, I think the particular labels that I would use for myself are agosexual homoromantic. I don't really enjoy sex, and I'm attracted almost exclusively to men and masculine presenting folks. However, as a creator, I don't really have a particular preference one way or the other for who I'm creating for. In my opinion, everybody, regardless of their gender or orientation or identity, deserves to experience a slice of life at their preferred size. So that's part of why I keep my non-commissioned audios as gender neutral as possible, and why I'm happy to do commissions for folks regardless of their identity. So, I hope that answered your question. I realize it's a bit corporate, perhaps, but yeah, in short, I don't like women personally on a attraction scale, but I do like providing these audios for women, men, non-binary people, cis, trans, gay, straight, bi, pan, asexual, aromantic, agender, that's what I was thinking of. Just whoever you are. I do hope you like these audios, and I hope you like yourself, because I personally like you quite a lot. So thank you, nobody, for asking this wonderful question. I do apologize for squeaky chair. I'll see if I can get it fixed by the time 2 months from now rolls around. It's not gonna be fixed. I'm not gonna do it. Place your bets in the comments if I get this thing fixed or not. Let's see. Rune asks, what are some of your favorite audio ideas to record? Or what triggers do you like to put into your audios? So, I'll count this as one question, because the answer to both kind of falls into the same category. So, to be totally honest, two of my favorite triggers are like mic brushing, and then the alternating between soft talking and whispering. Like specifically alternating between them. I feel like if only one is used, either whispering or soft talking, the effect that they have just isn't there. However, when they alternate, honestly, sometimes I just give myself tingles with my own voice. Like I did right now. However, for specifically ideas, I'm not too sure. I mean, honestly, I kind of sometimes will just generate ideas that allow me to use certain triggers, or that would involve using triggers I don't often use. But really, more or less, I just kind of like the simple slice of life audios, where it's just two folks hanging out, just other's company and the difference in their sizes. You know, those are really fun for me. So. Thank you for your question, Rune. I appreciate it. Boy, if you don't stop. Tabby Cat 94 asks, hello. I hope this isn't an inappropriate question. When you make audios with internal sounds, do you use your own, or do you use a sound library? I use my own belly. I have quite a lot of recordings of my own stomach, just growling. I will usually use about 2 recordings at a time, though, just to ensure that the stomach growls are somewhat common, not too far from each other. So, I'll usually... Honestly, I think I have easily over an hour of just stomach growls. My stomach just being super duper active, grumbling and groaning and making its insatiable hunger known to me. But I will take 2 tracks at a time so that the particularly loud growls and groans aren't like 15 to 30 seconds apart each. Because sometimes my stomach is very loud, but very like overall inactive. And sometimes my stomach is very active, just not very loud. I hope that made sense. Thank you very much, TabbyCat94, for your question. Next. Chase Anderson asks, when you put together stomach sound videos specifically, is there anything you do specifically to get noises, or is it just naturally talkative? So I did kind of briefly answer this in the last question, but usually I will record my gut right as I wake up. I'm not sure why it's most talkative then. I'm sure there's science behind it, but usually it is just pretty noisy in the morning. I'll wake up, and it will just be growling, just incessantly. That said, I also have a Tascam field microphone, which I use to capture the sound. I will press it right up against my belly and let it capture even the smaller little burbles and groans. So I think that's kind of a massive help as well, having the right equipment to capture even the smaller little groans and gargles, so that they appear a bit louder than they actually are. But that being said, of course, my stomach is also just loud as hell sometimes. I feel like I've mentioned this before, but I have been woken up by the growling of my own stomach on numerous occasions. And at times, this is quite silly, I will be doing something unrelated, such as drawing or calling on Discord with my friends. And I will hear my squeaky chair. I will hear my stomach growling so loudly that I will stop what I'm doing. If I'm on call with people, I'll tell them I'll be back. I will go grab my microphone and smoosh it up against my gut just to capture the sounds, because my stomach is being so loud. I'm just like, this is gonna be peak audio, like peak audio. My boyfriend can attest to this. There have been quite a few times we've been on call, and I have gotten up, just walked away and sat on my bed, lifted my shirt up, and recorded my stomach So yeah, I don't know if that'll work for everyone. I don't have a particular diet that I use to get my stomach to grow. I presume like a lot of like foods that'll make you like eat like your stomach bubble more. Like, I don't know, beans or like soda could probably help. But honestly, I usually just record when my stomach's being noisy as hell, so which is usually in the mornings. So, thank you, Chase Anderson, for your question. Next, Primrose Bardlaken asks, "Hi, Hand Fiend here again. I swear I won't ask you a question every month. Since I'm a Hand Fiend, I have to ask a hand-related question. What are your and your character's favorite ways to hold a tiny person? Asking for future reference. That's all I gotta say." So first off, do not apologize for asking so many questions. I love it. It's good to hear from you again. Hope you're keeping well. So, for me, honestly, I'm prone to dropping things. Like super prone to dropping things. At my work, I'm in misery. So I feel like I'd probably go with like the two-handed, like full circle cupping kind of hold where like you have one hand on the bottom for the tiny person to sit on, and then one hand over top, like a dome, to keep them from being blown away or falling off or anything like that. For the cat boy, I imagine he'd like to do more of like a two-handed kind of cupping into a bowl shape, like scooping the listener up into his hands and holding them nice and snug like that. For the friendly giant, I think he'd do just kind of like one hand on the bottom so that the listener can sit down or like stand or lay down or whatever they want. And then, should they need it, he can just like fold his fingers over them like a nice blanket. For the himbo jimbro, he'd probably kind of hold the listener like he's holding onto an ice cream cone. You know, one-handed, fingers wrapped around the listener. Not so tight that he's crushing them, just, you know, tight enough that they're properly clutched in his hand. For the chill mage, I imagine he'd do a sort of like one-handed cage, actually. Like letting the listener rest in his palm while his fingers are up and surrounding them so they don't go tumbling off. He's not oblivious when it comes to tinies, but I think he's aware enough that, like, things just happen sometimes. And he doesn't want, like, something to go flying away because he tripped or hit something or whatever. For the curious Naga, I think he'd like to keep the listener wrapped up with the last little bit of his tail usually. Or, you know, just let them ride on his back. But if they requested his hand specifically, I reckon he'd hold them in the palm of his hand, similar to Clement. And finally, for the bog mage, I imagine they would similarly hold the listener either by the listener's clothes or would hold them like tightly, like holding an ice cream cone. Quite a bit more firm than the himbo jimbro, because a shrunken, tiny little visitor creature usually means trouble and or work for them. So I can't imagine they'd be too inclined to be very gentle. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for asking it. Next. Hold on. Chase Anderson, I forget if I thanked you for your question, so I'm gonna thank you now. Thank you so much for your question. I think I just got so amused by talking about my stomach and the silliness that is its noise. But I forgot, so it's been done now. Sorry, Jay. Next, Hero Distinto asks, in addition to an absolutely delightful letter, at this point of the channel, have you considered Discord or something for community purposes? So firstly, thank you so much for your sweet letter. It is an absolute delight to hear from you again. And should you be inclined to share how your life's been going, I would be absolutely delighted to hear about it. But with your question in mind, I have thought about it actually. For a time, I did have a Discord server for my community. But ultimately what wound up happening with it was just the server got really busy, my life got really busy, and I just wound up not being able to keep up with it. So I wound up passing off the server to a pair of my friends who were already moderating the server at the time and were doing a far better job than I was able to. And from what I've heard, they've been running this server quite smoothly in my absence. So. As for the future, however, I don't know. I would still like to figure out some way to provide the folks on this channel with like a community they can be a part of. But honestly, I'm not convinced I'm the one to like run a community of some kind. I'm super busy nowadays with having like a full-time job in addition to my ASMR, and honestly, I'm just not actually that social. I don't think I could keep up with that many people, and I would worry that like if I only keep up with a few, people would feel like I'm playing favorites. So maybe one day I'll find a nice balance though, or I could run some sort of like blog or something that people could interact with, or I don't know. We could figure something out probably. A forum. Let's see. Thank you so much, Hero Distinto, for your delightful message and your question. So, next, an appropriate follow-up question. Kitzel asks, "Hiya Sauce. Some friends and I are working on a secret sauce server, and we'd love to advertise it when it's ready, with your permission, of course. Would you be okay with that?" No, I'm kidding. Of course. You are absolutely more than welcome to share your fan server online once it's ready. I fully support this. I say this lightheartedly, but I probably won't join for your sakes. But if you would like to advertise that you have a server to talk secret sauce stuff or whatever, I'd be happy to support such a decision. So thank you for your question, and I hope your server thrives. Next, Kiro asks, "How many accents can you do?" Well, it depends on if you're referring to them. If you're referring to me doing them well or not. But to be more specific, American, of course, is my native accent. It's what I'm using right now. And then Southern is an accent that I grew up with quite regularly, so I can manage it with relatively little difficulty. Though some words do avail me. And then I believe the British accent I can manage is considered to be a southeastern British accent. And that is because one of my friends has that accent, and I've heard him speak quite a bit, so I can replicate it serviceably. I'm sure that he and others from England could easily pick it out as fake. But I imagine it's good enough to at least not sound miserable. Then the other accents that I would consider more like party trick accents, the ones that can actually do well, like accents you pull out and your uninformed friends go, wow, that's really good actually. Those accents would be French, because I took a few years of French back in high school. So I am vaguely aware of how the words should sound. And German for the same reason. Though I do also have a friend from Germany whose voice I've heard enough to make some distinctions in word pronunciations. So, yeah, there you go. Like I said, those last two, I don't think they're very good. But I think that they're serviceable enough to present to people who don't otherwise know what the accents are supposed to sound like. And they'd go, wow, that's a really good French and German accent. I know, I'm pretty great. But yeah, so thank you, Kiro, for your question. I hope that was an amusing way of answering it. Let's see. Next. 9917 Gamer Girl asks, if it's not too much to ask, when will the next part of the Giant Roommates audio come out? Also, excellent job on your videos. They always seem to help me sleep. Keep up the good work. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, to answer your question, if you're talking about the two audios featuring the kind human and kind roomie, those two audios were commissions. So with that in mind, there are no additional audios for these two currently, nor do I have plans to continue them independently because the characters were created by a third party. That said, if the original commissioner does request a third audio for them, I will be happy to fulfill it. It really is just because it is a commission. I don't want to just hijack it and be like, cool, these are my characters now, and I'm gonna do whatever I want with them. So yeah. Thank you, however, for your question. I hope I got the right audio. If those aren't the ones you're thinking of, please inform me, and I will correct myself in the comments. So next, Tiger Gamer 123 asks, do you have any advice on voice acting and how to achieve doing different voices? So this is one of those questions that I'm not entirely sure how to answer. I do have some advice, but it's like I'm just not sure how to word it. So for specifically changing your voice to sound different, of course there are your head voice and your chest voice. Your head voice is, in my experience, a bit breathier and typically more feminine sounding, or softer and more delicate. Even when you're using the lower part of your head voice, it sounds a bit airier and flowier, you know? And then with your chest voice, that's the croakier part of your voice, the deeper part. It's typically more stronger and masculine sounding in that sense. Even if you're using the higher part of it, it tends to come across feeling a little bit more grounded. And I think once you figure out how to use both of those, it's easier to make your voice sound different from how it usually does. You can kind of tell when your voice shifts when you start at the lowest part of your voice and then slowly go up, eventually you'll hit a part that kind of like starts to croak again, even though it's not the like highest part of your register, the lowest part. And then after that point, you kind of force yourself to go into your head voice because it allows you to get even higher than your chest voice can. So, like, for example, my head voice is the voice I use for readback. Meanwhile, the chest voice is usually, my chest voice is for characters like Hugh, the Mojim Bro, or Clement, or even Chaudhry, the Chill Mage. Because even though he is in the highest part of my chest voice, he does still exist in my chest voice. Of course, accents are also viable. For me, I tend to use the accents I'm most familiar with, which is why my most commonly used accents on the channel are the Southern and American ones. However, if you want to change your voice without ranging specifically into accents, or like if you want to make two characters sound distinct even though they're both in a similar register, another thing you can do is change tempo and intonation. For example, the friendly giant speaks with a very slow and thoughtful tempo, refraining from using words like or Or with the bog mage, I tend to enunciate a bit more and speak specifically without smiling. Even when they're being friendly, they don't tend to have the same vocal shift as a smile might give them. For example, I could say, "Oh, it's so good to see you." Or I could say, "Oh, it's so good to see you." One of them is smiling, the other one isn't. And that can change a lot about how your voice comes across. You can also, in that sense, focus on placing certain words more or less often into your speech. For the friendly giant, rather than saying I will usually, I can't say this is every single time, but usually I try my best to just stop talking and wait for my thoughts to catch up. So if I'm talking about how the weather was today, and I, for example, saw a quite beautiful water lily while I was walking about. If I was saying this as sauce, I would likely have said that dreaded "you" word more than once. But I've somewhat trained myself to avoid that word, even when in my normal speech it would come quite naturally to me. Another example would be that for the bog mage, I would usually insert the word "good" into more sentences. You're listening. Good. You're not bad. You're good. That's good. And that's something I use to kind of keep them kind of grounded in their personality. Little things like that can typically help out a lot, even when you don't want to have to change voices entirely. Even when it's a bit exhausting having to, go from one voice to another, you just want to use your voice but different, you can absolutely just use the personality and the way you speak. For example, right now I'm talking very much like myself. I'm using filler words, a lot of filler words. Like, and that kind of thing. But if I simply start talking more like Clement does, slowing my speech down, letting my thoughts keep up with my mouth, and specifically avoiding saying those filler words, even when I would naturally be drawn to them, I can sound like a different person even if I'm not talking any differently than I usually would. So, yeah, I don't know if any of that made any sense. That's another thing. You can use contractions, I think they're called. Like can't, don't. And other words like kinda, dunno, wanna. Instead of I can't right now, but I don't know if you don't want to do it later. I kinda hope you do. You could say, I cannot do that right now, but I'm not sure if you would want to do that later, but I would kind of like to. That can also be a way to do it. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully anything of what I just said was helpful. I think the biggest thing for me is just figuring out, when I figured out that I could go from, I kind of call it the voice I talk in naturally, I call it my throat voice. I don't think that's an actual term, but it's like where my voice sits naturally, so it's not quite my head and it's not quite my chest. And then, I can, even when I have the same, when I'm going between my chest voice and my throat voice and my head voice, they all can hit the same particular area because it's kind of the center of my vocal range, but they both can be used in different ways to sound very different. So I don't know. That probably made very little sense, and I apologize. It's one of the things I know how it works, I just can't teach it to people. But yeah. Well, that was fun. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for your question. I apologize if it wasn't very helpful. Alright, there we go. I've moved you officially onto my chest, so I thought it'd be better and easier to be able to lean back and just rest with you on my belly than having you be on my desk and me have to crouch forward. So hopefully this works. Hopefully the audio quality is not so drastic that it sucks on one half of this audio and great on the other half. So Alex Smith asks, would you ever make an audio with a hungry stomach? It's one of my favorite triggers. Yeah, absolutely. I do, of course, have quite a few vor-related audios, but I can certainly see about doing just something with just stomach growls from the outside. Letting the listener experience them without the implication or inevitability of being devoured. I could definitely do that. I think that'd be fun. So yeah, consider it done. Just maybe not too soon because I do have a little thing going on this month, but soon enough. Wolfie Audio asks, hello, Secret Sauce ASMR. Hopefully my question doesn't sound weird or confusing. Have you ever thought about trying an ASMR video of a giant teacher speaker character with a tiny student listener? Or the opposite sides for them? I had the thought in my head for weeks. So I have actually. I wrote an entire script actually featuring the Himbo Jimbro and a professor speaker character that I just never ended up doing anything with. Which kind of matches your idea, though. In this case, both of the characters were speakers, and the listener would be like an anonymous third party. But yeah, I would certainly like to revisit the idea. I do have two different professor characters, I should say. I have two different professor characters that I think could be fun to work with. One of whom is a larger fellow. One of whom is a smaller fellow. So, either way, it could be good. It could be fun. But yeah, I think it could be a fun idea. I'm not sure when I'd get to it, but I'll see what I can do. Thank you for your question, Wolfie Audio. Or maybe it's supposed to be like C.A. Wolfie. Thank you for your question. And then, I think this is the final question. If I forgot anyone, I'm so sorry. I try to remember, but I don't always do it. Sometimes I'm a big silly boy. I just remembered I told my boss that today. Sorry, I'll go over this quick story and then I'll get to the final question. Today at my work, my boss, I had to grab something because I'd accidentally broken an item, and I had to get something to replace it, obviously, because I'd broken it. And my boss was the one who actually brought it into the room. And so when I walked out of the room and I walked back with a different version of the same thing, my boss was like, "Wait, did I not bring that in there?" I was so sure I did. I'm so sorry. And I was like, "No, you're fine. You did bring it in there. You remembered to." But I probably picked it up and immediately broke it by accident. My boss was like, "Oh no." Okay, that makes more sense. I was really concerned that I was so sure I brought it in there. And I was like, "No, yeah, you did. I'm just a big silly boy." Because for context, I was trying really hard not to say I'm a dumbass. Because that's unprofessional. And also, we had clients. And I was not about to, in front of potential people paying money, I was not about to call myself a dumbass. But nothing else came to mind. No other synonyms, no other euphemisms for it, no other polite ways of saying it. So I just used the most immediate thing I had, which was, I'm just a big silly boy. So yeah, that's the story of how I called myself a big silly boy to my boss. I couldn't stop laughing over it for a minute straight. I walked back into the room where I was alone. Thank goodness, no one else had gathered yet. And I just started chuckling my little butt off. Oh goodness. Anyway, final question. Silliness aside, ASMR Julia Zippo, Halloween Queen, asks, "Hey, my sweet friend of mine. This is my first time with asking you a question for your Q&A video. I've been wondering, how do you build your characters? Or how do you make characters? Because I'm very curious about that, my friend. I really like your videos, so keep up the good work, my friend, and have an amazing and awesome day." Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So, the process for inventing new characters is, as I think I've shared before, honestly just a lot of speaking to myself. While I'm at work, while I'm at my house, while I'm cleaning, while I'm driving, while I'm walking. Like if I go on a walk to the park, there's like a 50% chance I talk to myself the entire time in character. And it's just to figure out, what the voice and temperament feels like. What would be the most relaxing, figuring out what personality, occupation, etc. make the most sense, and also have the most possibility for expansion, If, for example, I make a character who is like, a fisherman, I guess, like that's great. But if that means that all his audios are fishing related, like being out in the ocean, fishing at a dock, fishing in the snow, eventually it's gonna get really boring. So I have to figure out, well, what can I do with this character? What else can I have him do? Do I need to change anything? So it's a lot of just talking to myself about that kind of stuff. Seeing, maybe what details are brought out simply by talking. However, when it comes to a character's first audio, which is usually how I'll go about properly solidifying their personality and voice and such, while it is still a lot of talking to myself, it's also a matter of figuring out what would work well in comparison to my other characters. So, for example, I've had quite a few, soft, sweet, loving characters that have been scrapped because as I worked on them, I realized they just felt very much like clones of the Catboy. There's only so many times you can make a character who sounds like this, and he's very soft and sweet, and he just wants the best for you, and he's just a nice little guy. Before it's like, okay, I get it. That's the only way of making a soft male you know how to do. I also have quite a few friends of the Himbo Jimbro. I have a friend group for him, dude. But I feel it'd be weird populating my channel with them because, they're so very similar to him because they're all his friends, obviously. That it would just be if I were to do one audio to introduce each of them every week, it would be a 2-month just takeover of the Himbo Jimbro at that point. So, yeah. And the same thing very much goes for their designs, I'll be honest. Usually the way I figure out a design is very silly because I just think about the things I haven't put on a character very often, and I then put that on the character I'm working on. I haven't used a beanie on someone before. This character gets a beanie. I haven't put someone in a vest before. Cool, this character gets a vest. I usually use larger ears for my characters. This one has smaller ears. It's very silly, rounded features usually. This one has sharper features, or the reverse. Usually have sharper featured characters. This one has rounder features. It's very silly to say out loud, but I think it helps me diversify the appearances of everyone, so it's not just a sea of blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boys, So, hopefully that answers your question. I will say, when it comes to creating their backstories and such, that mostly just comes out through talking in audios. Sometimes I'll know a little bit ahead of time, the character, the Chill Mechanic, kind of got developed on my Discord server that I used to have. So some of his stuff just kind of came about via talking with the people on there, rather than just talking as him. He was talking about him. Of course, the Bog Mage was kind of developed using Moonlight Cottage ASMR's Apothecary character as well, because I really liked, I think I mentioned this before, maybe I'm wrong, that's kind of like the inspiration. Because I really like the soft kind of not inherently cruel, but very much like not super doting. I liked that kind of vibe. So I wanted to make a character like that, and you can probably hear if you look at them side by side, if you hear them side by side, you can probably hear the inspiration. But even then, that was just kind of like a voice. It was purely by accident that they wound up having similar professions. But yeah, so that being said, usually, yes, creating characters, specifically audio characters, is just a lot of yapping. Talking to myself constantly. There are so many characters cooking in my brain, man. So many. Gosh. So yeah, there you go. Thank you again, ASMR Julia Sipple, Halloween Queen, for your question. I really enjoyed answering it. Hopefully it made some sense. It might not have, and if it didn't, I'm so sorry. But can you tell that it's 3:16 in the morning? Probably. You can probably tell. You can probably tell because I'm insane. I'm going crazy. I was actually, fun fact, I was tired when I started recording this. I was so sleepy. I was almost falling asleep at the keyboard. But I wanted to get it recorded so that the next few days I can record other stuff. But yeah, that's it. That's all from me. That's all I gotta say. Thank you so much for listening. Do I have anything more to say? Let me think. I really hope you guys enjoy this new upcoming audio series. I'm really excited about it. I'm still working on it a little bit because there's some stuff I have to still work out. But it'll be fun. I hope you enjoy it. Those of you who are tuning in like months afterwards, this is of course the June audio. And the audio that just came out before this was of the Himbo Jimbro taking a trip to his hometown. So this is a little series where he visits his hometown. It's gonna be fun. And I hope you like it. Then what's gonna happen in July? Nobody freaking knows, dude. Nobody has any idea what's gonna happen in July. I do. I know. Because I already have it figured out because I'm pretty great. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys as always for hanging out with me, listening to me ramble, listening to me talk. I hope you found this relaxing. I can't imagine how any of you found this relaxing. Me, when I listen to Q&As, I cling to every word. I'm like, yes. Tell me about the time that you got chlamydia or something. That sounds cool. And the person's just like, and I'm just like enjoying every moment of it. But then I don't fall asleep. It's like 3 hours later, and I'm like, what do you mean 7 a.m.? And I haven't slept since 9 o'clock a.m. yesterday. Shit. Maybe that's me though. Maybe that's just me. In any case, if you're not already sleeping, go to bed, sweetheart. You need your rest. And I know that sometimes it can be hard to sleep. I know that sometimes it can be really hard for a lot of reasons. Maybe you struggle with going to bed. Maybe you have insomnia. Maybe you don't want to go to sleep because going to sleep means tomorrow's going to come. Maybe you don't want to go to sleep because that means new things are going to happen. Maybe you don't want to go to sleep because you don't have control when you're in sleep. And all those things are very valid. But I still need you to go to bed. Because I need you to get your rest. Because if you don't sleep, you're going to be really tired. You're going to be really grumpy. You're going to be really weak. Because you'll have had so little sleep. You're not going to be able to function properly. And I need you to take care of yourself. Because you're worth it. You are worth taking care of yourself. You're worth doing your best to get some good rest. Didn't mean to rhyme. You're worth eating good meals. You're worth drinking plenty of water. You're worth all of that and more. So, unless you slept very recently, I encourage you to go ahead, get some shut-eye for now, and let me watch over you for a bit, okay? Whether you want me to be your massive giant buddy, or if you want me to be your teeny weeny protector, or if you just want me to be here with you, just making sure that you're okay. It's gonna be okay. And I'm so grateful for you joining me today. So, you get some good rest.